Okay, this is for this video I'm going to be showing you how to play a simple game of Magic. I was going to make a deck that wasn't complicated for the purpose of the tutorial, but I'm just going to see how this goes here, since I don't feel like doing that. So I'm going to start off by shuffling. This one's normally you make 60 card decks, but this one's only 40. So this is going to be player 1. I only have 1 health die. It's a 20-sided die because you have 20 life. So every time you take damage, you just subtract it. It helps to keep track of it, it's not really necessary. This one has 60. If you know what Reddit is, there's a subreddit for finding people to play games with. Every Friday night they have Friday Night Magic at like card shops, but if you're looking for other games, other nights of the week, there's a subreddit where people coordinate that, either online or in person. I just found that out yesterday. So normally what would happen here is you would roll the die. So that would be player 1's roll, that rolled a 10. And then player 2 would roll, you rolled a 12. So player 2 would have the option of either choosing to go first or deferring. And you start the game off by drawing 7 cards. This might get a little confusing because I don't have much desk space, but this is player 1's hand. I'm going to try to maximize space by doing that. I'm not sure what kind of angle you have, if you can see the other, how far. I can go about to here. It's a little blurry. So what I'm going to do is do this. Player 2's hand will be here. I'm just going to group the mana together. And by mana, I mean these lands. Mana are lands. This deck is blue and black, so water and swamp. This is a swamp. And this is an island. This is a fire. And the forest is obviously green. So player 2 won the roll because he got a 12 and player 1 got a 10. So he can either choose to go first or to go second. The benefit of going second is you get to draw a card. Because on beginning of each turn you get to draw a card. Except for the person who first starts off the game. So if I were to be playing, if I was player 2, I like to defer. So I would make him go first, and he wouldn't be able to draw on that first turn. So he would start off playing a mana. And seeing as how he can't play anything else, player 2 would go. And I'd happen to draw a island. Because you draw on each turn. Now, based off my hand, I have this card, which only costs 1 mana, and it's a swamp, so I can either play an island or a swamp, and I'm going to choose a swamp because it's a card that I can play. And I can't do anything else this turn, because that card isn't particularly useful to play at the moment, so it would be player 1's turn, in which he would draw a card, which is a mana. He would play that. And at this point, this player is able to play Font of Ire, I don't know which, but it costs 2 mana, which I have. It costs, in the top right, there's a fire symbol, which means a mountain, and then a little number with a circle around it that's colorless, which means you can pay any color mana. So for this card, I can tap, which spends the mana, which is tapping. That's what tapping means. So I spend the mana and I play this card. So this is now in play. And the ability of that card reads, sacrifice Font of Ire. Font of Ire deals 5 damage to target player. So it's a good card. In terms of damage, it kind of costs a lot, because it costs 4 mana to activate it. But it's probably handy down the line. And so it's player 2's turn now, because he would end the turn, because he can't do anything else. And I would draw a card, and I draw a Vaporkin. And the rest of my hand is blue, so I can either play a swamp or an island. I'm probably going to play an island at this point, because I don't have a use for any more swamps. It's good to get both your colors out. And I have 3 blue cards in my hand, so we don't get confused. This is my hand. This is in play. And we have a Vaporkin, which is flying, which means that ground creatures, anything without flying, can't block it. And I'll go into more on that later. And I have this other card, which isn't a creature, and another one that's not a creature either. But creatures are your main sources of damage. So I'm going to get this out, and I do that by tapping the mana, like as I did before, which spends it, and this comes into play. And it's a 2/1, and I know this because in the bottom right it says 2-1. So the first number is the damage that it can do, and the second number, which is the 1, is the life that it has. And we'll go into more of that later, as soon as this player gets a creature out. Now, I can't do anything now at this point because all my mana is spent and this creature just came out. Creatures cannot attack when they first come out. You have to wait until the next turn. So at this point I would end my turn, player 1 turn would begin. And he would draw a card, he happened to draw a mana. And I'm going to be looking at his hand here. I have 2 mana out, and both these cost 3. Ideally I want to get a water out, but I don't have a water mana yet. So what I think I'm going to do is play another mountain based off what these cards' abilities do. You don't really need to think too much about it because it's going to vary based off the hand that you have. So you don't have to think about it in this circumstance. That's just the card that I'm going to be playing. And I can now play this card, which is a creature. A 4/1 creature, so it's more powerful than this creature, but it has the same amount of health. And there's abilities to creatures. They vary. You just kind of have to read the cards. They all are different. This one is called Spire Spine. It's like a little hedgehog. The artwork on these are really nice. Each artist is labeled on the bottom of the card. But the ability here is Spine here blocks each turn if able. I had the option of doing something more complicated, but I'm not even going to get into that at this point. Just pretend that it's just a regular old creature. So I'm going to end this turn because I can't do anything. And I draw a card. Now, I just drew a card that has 2 swamp mana costs. So there's no colorless, so my priority here is to get the swamp out. So I play my mana, because I'm allowed to play 1 mana every turn. So now I'm able to play everything in my hand if I wished. And I have some choices here. I'm not going to get into what those choices are, because they're not too important. Because it's always going to vary. You just have to, this is just kind of like a basics thing. Basically what I have in my hand is 2 instant cards, which means I can play them at any time. Creature cards can only come out on your turn, and so can enchantments, and so can sorceries, but instants can be played at any time. So what I'm going to be doing is, I have a card here that can kill this creature. I also have a card that can return it to its hand, and I also have a card where I can buff my creature. I think that the best course of action would be to destroy this creature, and I can do that by tapping 1 mana and playing this card because it has a 1 mana cost of a swamp, and it's an enchantment creature, not an enchantment creature, but it enchants a creature, and it gives it -1/-1, so whatever is in this here, I subtract -1/-1, so in this case it's a 4/1, and if you forgot, the 4 is the amount of damage it does, the 1 is the amount of health that it has. So I'm going to enchant this creature, and because this card gives it -1/-1, it becomes a 3/0, and then once it reaches 0, it dies. So you remove it from play and you would put it in a graveyard. I'm going to keep my graveyard down here for that player. And then this goes back into my graveyard because it just leaves play. And to not get that confused, I'm going to put mine down here as well. And I still have 2 mana left, so I think what I'm going to do is buff my creature with an enchantment aura. And this says, it's specific, each card does something different, but in this case, every time I attack with this, I get a +1/+1 counter on it. So I would become, so when I attack again, this becomes a 3/2. and it would do 3 damage to the player because there's no creatures to block. So it attacks directly to the player, and he's now at 17 health. Now he's going to draw a card again. All his mana untaps. And all I have is forest in that hand, so I'm going to play another forest. Still don't have a blue mana, so I can't play this card. This one costs too much. But I can now afford to do this, which I played on turn, I think it was turn 1. Turn 2 because it was a 2 mana cost. So I tap 4 because that's the amount of mana that it costs. And I can do 5 damage to this player. And really this is, you sacrifice it, it's just part of the thing, so it goes to the graveyard. This is probably more than what you need to know. It's basically, you get your creatures out, you prevent the other player from getting his creatures out, and then you do damage based off what kind of cards you have. Your creatures or spells, instants, sorceries, those are spells. So he's going to end his turn. I'm at 15 health. I don't have a marker for that. And I get another enchantment card that I just drew. I can play my mana again. Because you play mana every turn. You tap 1. This one taps 2. You untap everything at the start of your turn. So I'm going to tap my mana because this costs this. And what this does is it enchants a creature. The enchanted creature can't block. And I can scry. Scry, you basically look at the top card of your library and you can decide whether you keep it there or you can put it on the bottom. And it's just more complications. It describes it on the card what scrying is. But again, you just want to kind of, for the purpose of this video, understand that you just get creatures out and you do damage to players, or you destroy the creatures that you have so you can get through to the player, because you can't attack the player if they have creatures that are able to block if they choose to. And so I'm going to attack again. He gets another +1/+1 counter from this. So it's a 3/2, 4, and now it will be a 4/3. And then he's going to get 13 life because he has no creatures to block. And it'll be his turn again. I also get to scry. So I found a swamp. I'm not going to keep that because I have enough mana for what I need at this point, which might be bad, might be good. I don't know. He draws a card. He plays mana. And I can now play Flurry of Horns. And this card's description says that I can put 2/2/3 red Minotaur creature tokens with haste onto the battlefield. Haste means they can attack right away. So I don't have token cards, so I'm going to use 2 land cards. These are 2/3 Minotaurs. Tokens are just tokens. It's like a coin. It just represents something. So this is a Minotaur, this is a Minotaur. They both have 2/3. And they have haste, so I can actually attack. Normally they come in with Summoning Sickness, but if you have haste, that goes away. So I can attack. I'm only going to attack with 1, so I can keep 1 to block this guy next turn. So I would do 2 damage to player 2, which is, we put him at 13 if I remember correctly. And then I draw. Normally you untap everything before you draw. have a return creature card to the owner's hand. So I think I can play that. I'm going to play that. And because it's a token, it doesn't actually return to the creature's hand. It just gets, the player's hand. It just gets destroyed. It would go to the graveyard, but that's a land. I don't want to mix it up with the deck. And really the smart thing to do would have been to send this one back so I can get through, because the other one was tapped so he couldn't block. But it's a good example for what I need to do right here. So I'm gonna, normally I wouldn't attack. But because this can't be blocked because of enchantment aura, I'm going to. So I'm gonna attack. I can scribe because of the ability on there. I got another Voyager's End. I think I'm gonna keep that because it might come in use later. And because this card says when it gets +3/+1/+1 counters on it, you sacrifice it and it just goes in the graveyard. But the counters stay. So this is still a what would it be? A 5/4. So it would do 5 damage. It can't be blocked, so it goes right to the player. Puts him at 8. And this keeps going back and forth depending on which cards you have and what happens. But it probably seems more complicated than it needs to be because you're not actually playing. So normally in like tutorial videos that Magic puts out, or the games that they have for a computer, they have like these really basic tutorials where you're put into a scenario where there's already things out and you just kind of play a few steps in order to understand what's going on. So they'll give you like typically like they'll give you like one of those bears, and that'll be out in play, and then the other player will have another creature out in play. I'm not even playing the game at this point, I'm just doing a demonstration. So this is player 1's creature, this is player 2's creature. So you would attack with this creature, and this one would block it. And because this does 4 damage and this only has 1 life, this dies. And because this does 2 damage and this one only has 1 life, this would also die. So it's just that kind of thing. And I feel like this isn't very helpful. Because I think I went into too much complication just by playing. I might do specific scenarios to kind of get a clear understanding of different things across. But that's basically it. That's the game. You just play cards to stop the other player from doing things, and play cards to advance your goal of killing the other player by dropping his health from 20 to none. And that's it.